Hello, we've got another Talking Trisomy. This is a podcast series brought to you by Soft, where all we do is talk about trisomy. Now, today's pretty cool because, there are people in my life that I've known since I was very little, going to Soft conferences, hearing my mom talk to other folks on phone calls back in the 80s. Yeah, a long time ago, kids. And Steve and Peggy Cantrell. They've lived in the St. Louis area for quite some time, but they had a son, Ryan, who was brought them to the world of trisomy and so many great memories Ryan has provided Soft. One of them is that they help run and honor the memorial ceremony that we have. The Cantrells have been amazing members of Soft. I think you've attended just about every conference. Steve has the distinction of being the past president. So he was one of the early presidents at Soft prior to Barb Van Haraway, and then had the title of past president for 30 something years. So the Cantrells have done a lot, helped shape Soft. But I think what's cool about today is they've got lots of stories to tell, and so that's what we're gonna go with. So Steve, Peggy, thank you for joining with us on this podcast series. I'd love to hear we were just telling stories before we hit the record button, so I want to get that energy going again. Steve also is an optometrist, and so he's got some cool facts and ideas and has been carrying around sunglasses to conference. So anyway, we'll talk all things Cantrells here on today's episode. So hello, Steve and Peggy. Welcome to the podcast. How are you guys doing?
Good morning, Nick. We're so glad to be here.
Delighted.
And what a pleasure it is to reminisce because Soft is woven into the fabric of our lives. And in spite of trying to get away, we can't get away. And we don't want to get away. So it's wonderful stuff.
Fantastic. So let's say how you got introduced to Soft. So that means tell us about Ryan and your family. I know you've got a other
Yep.
kid and
So
here we
this is
go.
the reason we're here. And without Ryan, none of this would have happened.
No.
And we when Ryan was born, we had opted. We didn't feel like we needed to do uh, testing at that time, and testing was a little bit primitive as far as a heads up. So we didn't know until birth that Ryan had a problem with the trisomy 18, and so the delivery was crazy. And Peggy, we had was it an emergency C-section?
Yes, because of Brian's heart rate
Yeah, its heart rate was
was
way down.
dropping with the
So we had the C-section, and then immediately knew something. Our attending physicians, now our OB, thankfully was a friend, was a fellow church member, and we're so happy he was there because we needed him and didn't know it. But anyway, Ryan was born. They rallied around, and the children's hospital ambulance came to transfer him to their facility.
actually for another child.
Oh,
It was for another child. and-
Really?
yes. And so then they put Ryan on that same ambulance and took him. I don't know that they would have called an ambulance just for him, unfortunately.
we were getting the bleak and
Yeah.
the words that we all hear that
We didn't get to bond.
no.
He was just, taken away.
So Peggy didn't. Yeah, you didn't.
No.
Anyway, so the driver of the children's hospital ambulance initially began blaming Peggy.
Right.
What did you do wrong
hmm
to cause this to happen? And of course, time we know nothing. So thankfully, that's when our OB intervened and kind of pushed him away and lectured him a little bit. But that was kind of the beginning. And so Peggy had to stay in the hospital remotely from Ryan. So we were 30 miles away from him. And when I think it took a couple of days to get the
It
diagnosis
did.
of trisomy 18.
Mhm.
And it was,
I was given the information by myself, alone in my room. Steve was not there. And the doctor said, "Oh, call your husband and have him come down." And it was horrible.
it was just mishandled. And that's what is wonderful, having Dr. Carey and the team and all that we're aware of right now. That language has changed. And so there's more respect for our children and more choices and more inclusion.
But because of Children's Hospital, that's how we found out about SOFT.
Yeah.
Someone handed us a brochure with phone numbers, and Steve called.
I'm not,
Forever grateful to that person.
Amen.
well,
Yeah. Holy Spirit.
that
Man.
was a genetic counselor.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm not sure your mom hadn't handwritten these things.
Hopefully.
But we were so thankful to get any information at all.
Yeah.
And
So we went to the lobby. There were no phones, pre-cell phones.
yeah,
And so we needed to get a roller.
1985.
There we
Roller-
go. I was looking for the
There
date.
we
I was
go.
going to ask that question.
1985.
1985. So I'm 2 years old, by the way, for
Okay.
context.
No cell phones when you were born, Nick.
Nope.
We didn't know you yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
So anyway, we went to the lobby where the phones were and called, I think, Chris first,
I think Chris was first.
and she picked up the phone.
Mm-hmm.
That was,
Yeah.
who knew she was going to answer?
Mm-hmm.
So, she gave us her wisdom,
Mm-hmm.
which was comforting.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
then,
to celebrate the milestones.
so Chris was,
Yeah.
heads up,
Yeah.
celebrate
Mm-hmm.
every day, every moment.
Yeah.
And then we called Dr. Carey, and he picked up, which was, it's amazing.
Amazing.
I guess they had long cords on their phones. They were carrying them around. But his wisdom really, what is this? What is trisomy 18? And so we had a solid handle on what to expect. And that gave us at least some direction, because we
When
were
I think,
clueless.
Ryan had a large VSD, so we thought that, he would die from heart failure. And Dr. Carey said probably not. It would probably be something else. So, we were kind of looking for hope anywhere we could find it. And, we had been given some really bleak um, scenarios of how Ryan would die. And, doctors shouldn't do that. But, then you're told these stories and you believe these stories because they come from a doctor. So you think, well, they know more than I know. And they were saying he'd never come home. And if he came home, he'd die in the crib. And it was just hard.
So to children's credit, now I want to give them kudos where they deserve it.
Yeah.
That one bad experience we had with the ambulance driver, an intern, was not what we experienced there. So they were doing everything possible. Now, the first thing, and of course, we're deer in the headlights.
Yeah.
We had no idea what this is, what's going to happen. So there's a lot of faith that is drawn in, and there's so many God moments to the scenario. So we had a mandatory wean. Ryan was on a ventilator, didn't know what that was. So it's basically 3 strikes and we're done. So he was removed from the ventilator, didn't breathe on his own. So they said, we're going to do it again, and 3 times. We didn't realize the 3rd time they weren't going to do it again.
We just didn't understand.
Didn't understand it. So anyway, the 3rd time he began breathing on his own. And so they had him dressed up in Cabbage Patch kids clothing, the little dolls, which kind of humanized things a little bit. And then that kind of really began the journey of our story. So we were in there, I think initially, he was born October the 4th, and we were in there through Christmas, I believe. Or no, we weren't.
We were there, I don't know, 10 days, 2
10 days,
weeks,
okay.
something like that.
So they sent him home with us.
Mhm.
And I think we were totally ill-equipped because we
You know,
didn't
the gavage feeding and
tube feeding.
just
That's the picture that we have of him,
and the meds and
all of that.
to
So
handle.
so I think clearly they were expecting Ryan to pass,
Well, that's
uh,
what they told us.
and so that's what it was. So we just decided to start living one day at a time and, you know,
And
move
celebrate the milestones.
celebrate the
Yeah.
milestones. And, so we had gone to Christmas Eve service at our church, and he contracted RSV, so we ended up back at Children's for about a month, I think.
Christmas Eve,
Yeah,
3
Christmas
months.
Eve, so we're there for Christmas
We
Eve.
didn't leave until March 3rd.
Yeah, and,
Then
so
he came home on a ventilator.
yeah, that was, the whole journey at that time was very surreal, and I think others that have had the same experience, I think with our resources that Soft has, it you parents are better informed of what is and what the options are and what parents' rights are. So there's this we've just evolved this in a lot of different ways. So he was there for a month,
3.
3 months, 3 months after
He
that.
had RSV pneumonia, and then he contracted, Pseudomonas pneumonia. Survived both of those, and that's when we had the trach put in and then brought him home on a ventilator, 24-hour nursing care.
Yeah. So that was interesting.
Intense.
Yeah.
But
So
when we got him home, then he really started to thrive, and we were really weaning him off of the vent,
yeah,
when he passed away.
the tr-
So,
the trach
yeah,
was important,
very.
and through your mom's wisdom, we began having a birthday cake once a week and balloons. So at the hospital. So he had, and it's amazing. This is a tip for every parent. Have candy and treats and stuff around your child's bed because the nurses are drawn to that.
They'll come around? Yeah.
And have a closet full of clothing, they can change your child into. So, we were treating them unfairly by baiting the hook, with candy and cake and balloons and making it a happy place. So
It helped all of us.
that was our intention, was to live a week at a time, celebrate each day,
Yeah.
but then we intentionally had a birthday cake. We had balloons all the time, and that's the kind of the genesis that melds into the balloon release that was early on, to celebrate our kids. And so Ryan, so we ended up coming home. His bedroom turned into a little NICU. So we had a whole house generator set up. Our insurance company realized this is going to be less expensive than the hospital. And so we had oxygen. We had a full time nurse rotating through. And so he passed at our house. Now, we weren't home
It was early in the morning.
early in the morning. Yeah, we
Yeah,
were home.
we were.
So
Yeah,
anyway, the
no,
nurse
it
came,
was.
got us. Children sent a helicopter
Yeah.
to the high school football field about a mile or two away. So kudos to them.
Yeah.
He had impacted the nurses in such a positive way.
And the physicians
You
that
know
they
this,
fought to really save him.
yeah, 4 hours. They worked on him for 4 hours, and you yeah. So the emotion of that. So here we are separated from that. We're having this conversation that just bubbled up,
Yeah.
and so the intensity of our kids, the intensity of the journey and the fight. Uh,
The love.
it's a love. So that's the
You do anything you can.
yeah. It was all hands on deck, pull out the stops. So the intensity of that emotion was that the helicopter, the nurses just work like crazy on him.
Mhm.
I'm going to have you speak
Yeah.
here for a second.
Well, they did, and that was so different from in the beginning.
Yep.
with that demand wean and, either he will live or he won't. And, that kind of
It changed.
detached, it changed.
So I think in hindsight, what we've learned from that is our team, everybody will have a team of physicians. They'll have a cardiologist, all the other stuff. They're looking at us, they're looking at parents, we're looking at them, and they're evaluating what can you do? What can you handle?
Yeah.
And so we thankfully made the case that we wanted to do this. I think that's a significant background thing that we're not really aware of. And so in the notes at our that we finally were able to get a hold of, if we're crying, we're not coping. If we're laughing, we don't understand. So it's a no-win scenario when we're speaking with the team that was managing this. So that helped. But anyway, that journey and the intensity of the care that they gave him was amazing. Then at his funeral, uh, our church had been using balloons to release balloons on Easter, and our pastor carried the balloon theme over. So everyone, I think we had about 200 helium balloons for everyone that was there, and he used the biblical Lazarus of Jesus talking to Lazarus when he raised Lazarus, unbind him and let him go. That's when we released the balloons and we were all directed heavenward. And it was again, a very amazing event,
Spiritual.
very spiritual event because the balloons were rattling against each other. And then when the time came, we all knew to release the balloons. We were looking in the blue sky at those balloons disappearing into the horizon. So it was kind of like we were sending a message
We
and
were looking up rather than focusing on the grave.
yeah,
So it was so
changed our
wonderful,
focus. Yeah, completely. So the and then after the balloons had been released after the uh, funeral at at the cemetery uh, in September. So he died on Father's Day, June the 15th, I believe. That was Father's Day at that time.
1986. Yeah.
So I as in soft, we say there are no coincidences. I think you can only providence maybe, but it. So we were, very uh, sad, and we were grieving the loss of Ryan. And out walking on our road, we live in the woods, and out walking on the road, and we were coming back in our driveway. And on the tree next to our driveway, here's a balloon hanging over with a tag on it. And
By the mailbox.
by the mailbox, and the tag simply said, "God loves you." And uh,
We've got the balloon in his book.
here's the it's out. So here's the actual balloon, and it was written. It was sent from Illinois, which is east. Usually the winds are blowing west to east. And this was a little boy that had really had a balloon release with a tag, wasn't expected to survive. And he was also a children's, different diagnosis, but he survived and he's doing well. But that stunned us. And I think the first soft conference was in 86,
87.
87,
Yeah.
87. Okay.
The next summer.
I'm glad your brain's here.
Will.
Yeah.
Chris would know.
Yes. I have fact finders that will
Yeah.
clarify,
So-
but yes, 87.
We're going to be fact checked. So at the first meeting, that was another scenario too, is that we were kind of thinking, do we want to go to this?
And we were compelled to go.
We were compelled. I mean, it turned
I was
out
going.
Whether
Because
Steve
I
was
thought-
coming was a different
Exactly.
story. Well,
Yes. Because I thought, I just wanted to share Ryan's story with everyone there and hear their stories.
Yep.
It was a new family, really, when you look at it. We all understand and
so
empathize.
we share, you know, at the, you know, I can still visualize and see where everybody was sitting
Right.
around the room. And I think someone made a video. There was videos that surfaced from that first meeting. You know, that was the video recorder that you had carried on your shoulder. Looked like a mini,
Massive.
Yeah.
mini studio. You know, that's what was going on. Well,
Uh-huh.
anyway, that was interesting because it was very emotional. And I always tell this story that when we arrived at the Little America Hotel, we weren't sure where we were going. And so we went to the floor, came up on a room, and here's this young trisomy 18 young lady, Carrie Holiday, alone sitting out in the hall by herself. So, you know, this is verging on child abuse.
Good parents.
So,
Good parents.
Abandoned, right?
so we thought this must be the place. So anyway, that began the journey. Everybody stood up and shared their story. And what's remarkable, there's themes and variation, similarities, but everybody's is unique and different, and no two are alike. And so we shared our story, and we mentioned how we'd use balloons at Ryan's graveside service. And that became a thing in Philadelphia that next year. So
Mhm.
that was one of the items at that conference. And it was interesting at that meeting. We were for our picnic and celebration. It was pouring rain like crazy. So everybody had to walk over and go under the edge and release the balloon up into a rainy sky. That I'm not sure that we've had rain since, but I don't think it was like the heavens pouring tears down on
Yeah.
us. There was a lot of emotion.
Mhm.
And so that continued until environmentally, uh, we aren't able to do that anymore. And uh, I think Josh put together a beautiful balloon video that kind of replicates that during our time together for our celebration. And when we get together, I always view it as a celebration.
Yeah.
You know, our kids are amazing.
Yeah.
Kids are no accident.
No.
And it took a long time. And I'm going to bring a psalm into this, Psalm 139. And God says, I knit you I knit you together in your mother's womb. And my addition to that is, and I don't make mistakes. So that's where we are with that after many years of discernment. So that carried forward for a long time. And so the soft, you know, evolved over the years to where we are today, which is wonderfully organized. We're delighted, Nick, to have you being there doing this, because I think it really elevates our soft presence. And with the American Association of Pediatrics, is that right? The AAP, with their recent release of from not viable to viable and offer all care as is applicable, is huge. And that comes from the medical advisory board, this super group of super docs that they have, that John pulled together. You know, I just have, I'm so, with soft, the surprises are many, the stories are many, but they're inspired very uniquely. So
Only God.
only God could do that. And uh, it took a long time to kind of pull that together and consider what that is. So this is the hat that I'm wearing is the rainbow and the balloons. This is a Dr. Carrion's hat. Very, very rare.
Yeah, I think he wears it to most picnics or some form
Oh, he
of
I
does.
think
big,
Yeah.
so.
big
I
yes.
think John may need a new one. You know, it could stand on its own. We're not sure.
Yeah.
But the
But
picnics,
you're
yeah, go ahead.
go ahead. Oh, I was just
I,
saying, you talking about the narrative changing, right? The literally the words that are
Yeah.
associated with these conditions in medical journals is changing. And it happened specifically in July of 2025 with the article you're referring to.
That was,
What's pretty it's just monumental is right after conference had ended and the AAP releases that. And what a wonderful time having had a chance to interview Dr. Pyle. Just the idea of letting modern, advancements in medical research and technologies has allowed for more data to exist to say, hey, certain scenarios allow for certain surgeries. And if those surgeries occur, then these kids can
can happen.
thrive to their
Yeah.
capabilities, and who knows what's going to come from that. So really exciting stuff. And if I could add this, I was just talking to some um, medical doctors. Will have the podcast out probably right before we have yours, but like hospitals in Chicago, Lori's in particular, is creating processes to have standards of care. So that way, when a child gets diagnosed with this condition, there isn't Carrie's story and a lot of the stories in the 80s and 70s sound a lot like the 90s and early 2000, where when a child was born, it was kind of like, well, what do we do now? It sounds like with you guys probably being taught how to run the what is it called, that down the nose, the feeding tube down the nose.
Yeah. Gavage. Oh,
I
sure.
know that
Feeding.
in
Yep.
our household that was a afterthought. My mom and dad always talk about how that was an afterthought of like, oh, I guess we could feed Carrie with the gavage. And they said, let me show you how to do it. And it was just kind of done on a desk, right? So
Yeah.
we're going from good-hearted people kind of thinking through on the spot. I label it a little bit more of the care is going from reactive to proactive, if I could use
Yeah.
some
Yeah. Yeah.
business
Yes.
lingo there. And that's what
Mhm.
I'm excited about. So when you listen to that one, there's Dr. Natasha Henner and Grace over at Lori's Children's Hospital is doing some awesome things. So
Yeah.
Lori's is doing some cool stuff, and they're not the only one. I think there's a number of individuals that for the care is transforming. So I think you're
That
absolutely right. Um,
You know, the
and you
word that
mentioned you.
describes
Go
yeah,
ahead.
go ahead. I was going to say is hope.
No. You
yeah.
you go, Steve.
So
Hope.
hope.
Absolutely.
So families and we love our children intensely.
Yeah.
So they're, don't take them from us. And I know that, I don't share 100% of thoughts on that. And we support, if families decide to terminate, we will stand behind them and care for them and include them. But I think when you have the opportunity to meet your child, there's an instant bond that you can't describe, that you're connected, and your child is part of your family. And as we see the advancements, uh, and the un the unintended benefit of nutrition,
Mhm.
and just the little sunglasses, when we put we know so much about that. And now that there's been a diagnosis that photosensitive epilepsy may be, well, I think we can say is common to trisomy 18, trisomy 13. Not in every situation, but that's there. And what that means is light is uncomfortable. Light causes an overstimulation of the brain, and filtering that light is a game changer. So it makes family time. Kids can hang around the computer with families. They can be around a digital screen. Digital screens are toxic to our kids, some of them. So that's a trigger that creates the whole thing. And what it does, it triggers a seizure. The painful light triggers a seizure, and then sometimes leads to apnea, where kids have to be bagged back. And there are unintended benefits of nutrition that have been stunning. And I may have sent you that video of Jude in Kansas City, and his mom just had a beautiful testimonial of her journey with, "Don't you see he's having a seizure?" And then they had a seizure in front of the neurologist, and then the story went off there. Sorry, that I digressed a little bit, but
Well, it's all connected.
it's all connected. This is all soft.
We knew Brian was very light sensitive, and we didn't know that that was part of a
Yeah.
trisomy child's life. We didn't know that until we went to Salt Lake and saw other kids.
The kids
So other kids have.
Mhm.
doubled over,
Mhm.
heads in laps,
Yeah,
and, that then we started thinking, "What is that?" So it was just being at a soft conference
that's how
after a
the
soft
sunglasses
conference.
came about.
We had, we had Little Smurf. One of our companies was discontinuing their Smurf baby sunglasses with cable temples, which was perfect. They were infant sunglasses, and our lab was nice enough to put an appropriate lens in them. And with then it's trial and error. But then all of a sudden, when the children had that, families realized. Now the other thing is, uh, Chris Donahue, whose daughter Mary, uh, Chris juiced the vegetables that are high in these nutrients, lutein and zeaxanthin, and then included it in Mary's tube feeding. And she went from throwing a blanket over her head to get to the car because she was so intensely light sensitive to not needing a blanket. So this is the nurse saying, "Well, wait a minute, she's not so light sensitive anymore. It's because of that." That's critical. And anyway, that led to the next thing. So Chris Donahue was funny because she found Pirate's Booty popcorn, which was made from spinach, which is one of the veggies rich in lutein and zeaxanthin. So she was digging into it and coming up with all kinds of weird foods that we had no idea existed that function for soft.
Well, that changes my attitude on the pirate's booty. There you go. But no, I, this last conference, it was a dad of a trisomy 13 girl. I sadly can't remember the name off the top of my head, and we're live, so we're going. And he was talking to me about some of this, that he was being really thorough in some of the purees and just what he was creating with combination of formulas. And I
Sure.
imagine in 1986 there was probably one formula, and it was probably just the single infant formula. Like you see it for your average infant. You go to Costco, you go to wherever. There's multiple levels for sensitivities, this and that, and so great advancement for our kids too. But yeah, this dad was just like, when I mix in some blueberries and some other things, and I can get these vitamins in as quick as I can, this is how she's responding. And so
Yeah.
I just think it's really awesome that just as we go each day, we learn more, and then that gets passed on in our Facebook
Well,
threads for others up to the
Mhm.
oh yeah,
doctors. Go
Ann
ahead.
Barnes. You got to give a lot of credit to Ann Barnes.
Yes.
Her care book. So there's
Mhm.
a vision section, which we're refreshing every so often. But the diet, became a thing. And then with Katie Johnson's video of Jude from Kansas City, uh, just was a game changer. None of us were expecting that all of a sudden, because of his nutrition being added, which is the blueberries and everything else, into his diet, would have such a profound seizure reversing effect. So he's not on any seizure meds. He can go outside. He can be with the family. What's telling, and I haven't had this conversation with Dr. Carey yet, but or Dr. Braddock. Now that we've got Dr. Braddock here in town, I can pick on him pretty easy. But his color improved, his his uh, connection. He makes eye contact. A lot of the kids aren't making eye contact. We know that our kids can see, so there's ways non-verbally to determine, are we seeing? But my observation of little Jude, He's engaged with the family. He's part of the family. He's making eye contact, his color, muscle tone. So, no studies on this yet, but that's where it begins. We just see things, make the recommendation, and is this going to be a benefit? And I think it definitely is. So that's where the sunglasses came from. And thankfully, we had the ability to put them together. And parents are noticing. So, again, trial and error. Let's get some feedback. So, the dad that's putting blueberries in was probably looking at Ann Barden's care book on vision, which, I've been everybody's cranky uncle about this. And the nerd in charge, we have to, it's really important. And the kids respond. Digital screens, our environment, LED bulbs, there's so many things. So the recommendation is wear your sunglasses all the time and see how that benefits. And then add the supplement with lutein and zeaxanthin into the milk that's tube fed. We're just getting positive results. We need more studies. And the Moran Eye Center, which is across from Primary Children's in Salt Lake City, did a seminal study on lutein and zeaxanthin mouse study. John's been wanting a mouse study for a long time, and we haven't gotten our mouse yet for soft. But they did a really valuable study that got my attention with lutein and zeaxanthin being found in the umbilical cord. And so there's a third trimester transfer of these nutrients based on this study, which is published. We've got it. But it's a little hard to navigate, but that's no coincidence that right across from Primary Children's, good things are being done at Moran, and that's a big deal. So what do we make of that? I think uh, lutein and zeaxanthin needs to be needs to be part of prenatal supplement. It's doing something. Our body doesn't make it, so we have to consume it. So if we don't consume it, it's not there. And if by some chance that we're deficient, there are some side effects. So that's just my 2 cents worth on that, and I think more to follow. The we talked about the glasses, which morphed into a contact lens, and again, this is all soft. And without soft, none of this would be out there. And so, do you want to talk about that a little bit now? Would that make sense?
Yeah. I'd like to know. I don't
Okay.
know much about that. So you're gonna have to educate
Okay.
the ignorant right now.
Well, none of us are in that category on this conversation, but we're going. There will be a 10-point quiz. Okay.
Yes, there we go.
So, another condition. So this is, providential. Uh, Sunflower syndrome, photosensitive epilepsy, which is our trisomy kids, and Javon syndrome are the three primary labeled photo-triggered seizure disorder, light triggered. And so about 15 years ago, one of my longtime patients said, I'm diagnosed with photosensitive epilepsy. What can we do? And I said, I don't know. Let's look into it. So I was thinking about soft at that time. And so we did some research, and then we custom tinted her contact lenses, specific color. And she's been seizure free since that time. This is 20 years ago, maybe. So that led the scenario into 5 years ago, 6 years ago now, the sunflower community became part of the conversation. And and through with Terry Krotzer, we did an interview and a video for Soft that's still on the website, and it pops up. So some of the sunflower families are finding this video from Soft, which leads to then contacting the office what's available. So we've switched to a soft lens for this. It has a filter that covers the pupil, so the center of the eye that doesn't allow light to sneak around the lens. And the blend of filters and pigments in there is not allowing certain wavelengths of light to get through. And those are the trigger wavelengths that cause a seizure. So when the
Yeah.
sunflower kids wear contact lenses, they don't have to wear sunglasses and hats in class, and they can go join the cheerleading squad, play on the team, be normal, be a kid, maybe even drive at some point, which has happened. So Elizabeth Teal is a neurologist, epileptologist at Mass General in Boston, and so she is the authority on sunflower and does a lot of drug trials and is aware. And there's no medication. So photosensitive epilepsy and the others are considered to be intractable. And meds usually, if they work for a period of time, but then they don't. So the breakthrough with the contact lens, and it's comfortable. So it's a regular soft contact lens, 12-month lens, but with the addition of we have a single technician that does that with the addition of a pupil filter zone. So it's notch filtering. It's not allowing those wavelengths through, and the overstimulation of the brain, which is our soft kids. Light overstimulates, causes a bad headache, and it could be like the dominoes falling. Leads to other things. So if we can calm that down, and we're able to do it now, and we had two children diagnosed with trisomy 13 wear this contact lens, and one in San Francisco, one in Indiana. And the young man from Indiana that came in, as soon as we put the contacts on, it was a visible change. All of a sudden, he's looking around. His eyes weren't squinty. He wasn't, all of a sudden you can see a change from being uncomfortable to a change of,
And the
wow.
muscle tone.
And
He
he was sitting up,
yeah,
and the muscle tone improved, and his color changed.
yeah.
And I'm thinking, well,
We were stunned.
more study needs. That's what our anecdotal observation was at that point, and the mom repeated that and kept sending it back to us. The benefit. So along the way, we were able to do that uh, with the trisomy kids, and with that painful light, which we can replicate in glasses to a certain extent. But the glasses are easy to obtain. The contacts are a little more demanding, but the benefit uh, in Oklahoma, Megan
Hayes.
Megan Hayes. So Megan Hayes, uh, see, Nick, you're not the only one that has trouble pulling these names up, but Megan Hayes is wearing the proper filter in her glasses, and she has for many years now. And Sarah, her mom, mentioned that she, when she has them on, the world opens up. She begins to become more in touch, eye contact responds. So we know there's something going on. There's some pain involved, but it's reducing the overstimulation of our electrical brain. So the brain is all electrical and gets overstimulated. So that, and all the stories along the way are anecdotal, but they build on, well, hey, wait a minute, let's pay attention to this. So the contact lens, we had once they have a Facebook community. Once we had success with one person, the word was out. We fit many people now with that. And then Dr. Teal from Mass General called out of the blue and said, "Do you realize you're treating 10 of our patients?" And I was taking it like, you're treating 10 of our patients. And we become good friends at that time. But anyway, we got together by Zoom. She took the ball and ran with it. And an IRB study is an institutional review board study, tough as nails to get. I could get one on my own. And so she did it. And the paper just was published in Epilepsy and Behavior. So I think it's available there. It was a questionnaire study where they asked the families who were wearing the lenses a lot of questions, pull that together and graph the data. And I'll send that to you because it's fascinating. Basically, what it boils down to, there was a 72% decrease in seizure activity with the contact lenses. And we fine tune things that it's a soft contact lens. We have a family I'm going to be Zooming with, I think later today. They have a 6-year-old. And so putting a 6-year-old into a soft contact lens means mom and dad are inserting and removing, which is not uncommon. There are pediatric infant contact lenses as well. So that has then taken off in a very positive, when I say taken off, informationally, there's more activity and energy surrounding this. So this community affects the soft community. And the CSET, which is the Society for EEG Technologists, is going to be here in St. Louis in April, and their president has already done a, 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 a lecture on sunflower and the contact lens, and there's more interest now. So this is very misunderstood, I think, like our kids are. It's misdiagnosed as a tic or something different. But and again, I'm not being critical of that. We just need more knowledge, more information, more evidence to get out there to be able to more carefully diagnose what we're looking at and what can be done. So that's the EEG community that we're going to be, I think, co-authoring a couple of articles for their neurodiagnostic journal. So I'm just an accidental tourist on this
There you
ride.
go. Spreading the good word, helping these families.
Well, anyway,
Oh man, I appreciate that, the expertise that you're bringing. Pardon me. I'm just the thing about the Cantrells, if you can't pick up, is that they don't need a podcast to talk all things trisomy, and to have Steve think about all these other studies in his world, right? Optometry, all the variations he quickly, Steve, you just see the opportunities to bring some new information to something that our kids battle with. And so I'm always in awe of that, just how it's in your DNA, it's in your blood to just be able to make sure that you're looking out for, Ryan's friends and what you can do for them. So
I like that.
Ryan's friends, yeah.
Love that.
I like that. Well, and his friends are my friends, and Peggy's friends, and your friends, and we're all friends. That's where our community exists with a common voice. But the genesis is this was watching Ryan be painfully light sensitive, have a seizure, and then stop breathing, and
he had no sunglasses.
Yeah.
No,
we just didn't know.
So this is kind
what
of
to do.
An adjunct to that. And it's because of hanging around at Soft with Dr. Carey. And what's so fascinating is at the board meetings, Dr. Carey would do an update, a medical update on what's going on. And it was just so fascinating being a fly on the wall, listening to what this is. And again, it's not unlike when we first talked to Dr. Carey when Ryan was born. He was able to articulate what we're dealing with. And I think knowledge is power. And if you know what you're dealing with, you can respond to it and understand. You don't feel like you're, ready, shoot, aim. And you can be more precise with your care. And with Ann Barnes' technical care book, that's invaluable. Everybody needs to see that because
it's great.
There's no other place that has 200 solutions to constipation. So Soft can be proud.
But constipation is a legitimate problem if you think about it, in particular for our kids. So yes, we
It
need all
I
is.
200.
understand. Probably for
Yeah.
parents too, and the rest of us. But no, Anne's
Yes,
book is powerful. It
absolutely.
needs to be read. Needs to be required reading.
Yeah.
The Trisomy 9 book that just came out, the Expected Mothers, Expected Parents book, huge
Yeah.
because this is self-service and education and
I've got the
understanding
9
what's
one
going
right
on.
here. My
What?
my
Yeah,
bulk order just came in.
That's great.
Um,
that's it.
I got I got more coming so
Okay,
I can take them to ACMG. Oh, you
I
got
can
one
show you.
too.
You showed me mine. I'm going to show you yours.
Yeah. So yeah, you can get those on our
Now,
website or
your
on
mic is breaking up.
I want to go back. So anyway, optometry, I like just finding solution for our kids, transforming the care is something that, is going to be the next wave of exploration. The narrative is changing. We need it to change more across more professionals, medical hospitals. I think for regional hospitals, hopefully they can be that they're tied to maybe a larger hospital that can have some sort of relationship to have some standard of care. I think they're like the ball is rolling, right? A lot of good things are happening because at the end of the day, you guys have said it. We want to empower parents with information so then they can make the right decision for them. And having chatted with a number of parents, that changes based on their age, based on the situation, and the complexity of each kid. You've said just as we were talking, there's a lot of similarities, but each kid's journey's unique, and each kid's complexity, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, make do determine survivor rates and how long they'll live and what have you and what they need. And so we just want information, and we're so grateful for those medical communities that are really shaping that. But you're right. We've got some books that hopefully you can read. There was a gal I just published her podcast. Mary was saying that when she first got the diagnosis, talking about Ann Barnes' book, she literally printed Ann Barnes' book just on the printer, right? So she's got like 400 pages, and she said she literally would take all pages to every appointment after her daughter Rose was born and be like, oh, wait, we got to check the book. And she was
That's great.
bringing these like spiral bound, homemade, went to the local Kinko's or whatever copy place and made her own little book. And she said she brought it like a shield to say, hey, wait, whoa. Let's consult with the book real quick. Let's make sure that idea matches what others are doing. So, that was her suggestion, was take these new books to, Anne's part of her book. So she was very thoughtful of that. And she just said, I just was going to research like crazy. And so, it's matching what you guys are suggesting as well, which is empower yourself, inform yourself. And, we as an organization implore medical professionals to do the same. These conditions are just rare enough that in certain communities and certain hospitals, you're not going to see a lot of our kids. So please be ready with information, with pamphlets, with our books, with a standard of care, so you can at least be proactive in this information relay. So you're doing. I just love what you guys are up to and how you just bleed soft. So, a couple of things. We have the balloons in the back. I had you move them because they're like bouncing, but
Oh,
we
sure.
have the balloons in the back. And what a memory of mine. I know in recent years, and I was just emailing someone about the balloons and how we do still use them a lot in our branding because they mean so much to us. Um, and so we visualize that still, but we don't physically do it anymore.
Yeah.
But I just want to commend you. That's something I don't haven't shared this with a lot of people, but even as I was a teenager and we were at a conference, I think one in Seattle, one in Salt Lake, and those balloon releases were impactful to me. Knowing one, when we released Carrie's balloon, that feeling and that thought of her being with her friends and her still living within my faith, that's something that I consider that that is still happening, right? It is something within my faith, and much like yours. And so just to think about that, visualize it and say, hey, we're thinking of you. We know you're up there, that looking up instead of looking down, like you said, Peggy. I've never, I think, taken the time to thank you too for those moments. A- And if I can kind of just get on my soapbox of siblings, um, I know for me, having these kids are impactful. Their quality of life and living conditions and all that. Those are conversations for ethics committees and others. But I'm telling you from my mouth, from my personal life, the quality of life that I have received because I have a sister with trisomy 18 has been better because of it. So I always like to share that. I always want that to be known. And those moments of thinking of her, even after her passing, has changed how I parent. It makes me a little more I probably tell my kids I love them probably a little more than I would have. I do things in a moment. I try to count the daily successes, even in the grind of fourth grade and eighth grade. We want to be there and we want to think through them. So the little milestones that you guys were talking about. So I always like to bring that up. So if I could ask about, just to add to the echo of Ryan's life, what it's impacted your family, your community, your daughter, just everything relating to your family. Do you mind sharing kind of your perception of what Ryan meant to you collectively, and kind of start in your home and move from there?
Well, Lauren never knew Ryan. So he passed in June of '86, and she was born in March of 1988. But we took her to every conference, and so she experienced the siblings and still has
Yes.
friends, the soft sibs, and loved every, balloon release, very impactful. Her love and caring for others is definitely shaped by that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And she uh, is sadly missing. Probably they're going to miss this Colorado meeting. Maybe, I don't know. And but she's missed a couple of meetings and because of her job, and is sad, because it means so much to her from our family. So when Ryan was born, our faith journey took a hard right turn. I mean, we were borderline pro-choice before, and realized that, wait a minute, there's more to what we see. And it doesn't mean that every circumstance is different, but it's integrated into our life. And it's interesting. So I am an elder at my church, and my experience, I'm vocal about that in our meetings as far as uh, sanctity of life. And I'm not getting into politics at all, just the reality of our kids. It's not, we're just sharing what we know. And so it soft in our experience is probably a daily conversation because it's part of who we are.
Yeah.
We don't want to get away from it. We have such great friends that we miss. When we go to a soft conference, it's like everybody else there gets it. And, and so you can have a conversation because you're all on the same page and you just want people to thrive. Uh, getting back to the balloon release, one of the things that I always felt, I think Peggy and I always felt, there's a face and a name on each balloon.
Yeah.
This is somebody.
Mhm.
And we're celebrating that by saying their name
Yes.
and acknowledging
Their life,
that their life was
you
valuable,
know?
had worth, and
Absolutely.
we want them back. But that's uh, it's funny. The Neil Diamond Heartlight song
Mhm,
has become that struck me, with Ryan,
mhm.
and it goes, "Come back again. I don't want you to leave next time.
But turn on your heart light.
Turn on your heart light."
Yeah.
So we as parents, even though our children may be with us or gone. We've got responsibilities to share what we know and be an outreach representing our children, but a different view of life. I think that's where it comes from. And I think uh, with the wonderful AAP article, I mean, that's a game changer. There's no two ways you can see it. With the sunflower community, soft comes up often in my conversation. I said, here's what's going on there. I wonder if it would have benefit here. So these are all seizure communities that that are themes and variations similar but different. And I asked an epileptologist in San Francisco how many seizure disorders are affected by light, and his comment was all of them. Now we've got three that definitely are photo triggered, but then to hear that comment that he feels like their light impacts everything differently, and our bulbs and our digital screens, high energy toxic light coming from screens, our TVs, we're bathed in an environment of sometimes very aggressive toxic light. When you're on your screens all day, you could be worn out, get a headache. There's a lot of things going on there. So there are some downloadable Flux, FLUX, is a downloadable software that one of a young man at the University of Arkansas that's in the sunflower community had a grand mal seizure because he just had two screens looking at him at the same time. And then his roommate said, "We're not going to do that again." So they found Flux, FLUX, which you can turn it on, turn it off, but it manages the output of light coming out. So Nick, you have an assignment: download that software. But then, but
Oh, what were you gonna say, Steve?
uh, I think I lost it. I'm not sure. Let me no. What I'm stunned about is the wealth of information coming from soft. So it has been gradually building since 1986 when we had our first board meeting in the kitchen of the Little America Hotel. You're going to do this and you're going to do that, and that was your mom. She was the sergeant in charge, and thankfully for your mom's leadership, your dad's leadership, we wouldn't be here today without that. And of course, Dr. Carey, um, and the cabal of like-minded doctors that Dr. Carey has put together, these super docs that are coming. It's really interesting. I love to just listen because everybody has a bit of information. There's just a little something that all of a sudden puzzle pieces. There's a puzzle piece here. Ann Barnes has really put this together in a nice way. But now let me circle back a little bit. The medical ethicists, uh, back when we had our conference here in 1990, one of them mentioned, what gives parents the right to pollute these kids into society. So that they're talking about trisomy, and we were there. So it was full of parents. And my comment was, I'm glad nobody was armed because he might not have made it off the stage. But that was empowering. But we're not there today. The AAP article and many other things, the ethicists have a role, but the attitude towards our kids, it's completely different. And we were offered heart surgery back at Children's at that time, which was stunning. We had spoken with Dr. Carey. We opted not to because it was really that fuzzy failure to thrive. That just means there was a breakdown in the system that took his life. And that was the reason they weren't able to revive him for 4 hours of massive CPR, oxygen, everything going on. And it wasn't his heart. So, bravo for heart surgery. I applaud that. And I think, but this was in prehistoric times last century. And it's interesting the journey of soft over the years, how it's evolved and the care of our kids as it has gone from disposable to non-disposable, non-viable
Yep,
to viable. That's huge,
it
and
is.
we all have a different slant on that. So, and I apologize, we're venting a little bit, but we've moved forward so much because of the blessing of the board, Dr. Carey, the medical advisory board. I mean, good grief! Look at the interactions between other trisomy groups, and soft soft is not just surviving; it's thriving, and because of the uh, our heart, it's thriving because we have a genuine concern. We're not doing this for ulterior motives. We're doing it because of love and hope for our families and our kids. And that's why and you can feel that, you can see that we're a very open, genuine society. And the comment that your a person you spoke to that went to the Philadelphia conference, that was really kind of a seminal conference. And well, they all the early ones were. So San Francisco, I think, was after Salt Lake City, and then St. Louis was after that, and then Philadelphia. So, we've had our discussions amongst our members, and occasionally we might disagree, but we're at a point now where we've come together with a common focus, and that's huge. So, bravo.
Wow. I appreciate it. The evolution of everything is by no coincidence. We stand on the
Right.
Yep.
shoulders of you two. Great
Well,
doctors are doctor committee, doctor councils that we've created. Thank you, John Kerry and Dr. Braddock. There's a number of wonderful medical professionals growing that have concern for our kids and these conditions. The other element is interesting is there's always this. I've talked to a few of them, and we've got a couple in our midst, but graduate students in PhD programs that have their dissertation that is focused on trisomies and not just Down syndrome. And so there is this growing amount of community that is being created. And so um, the good news to me is that the more people, more awareness that we can bring to it, again, I think my call, and this is something of recent kind of contemplating, is for more medical communities to be proactive and to be ready. Just be ready, have a
yeah,
plan, and when that diagnosis comes, now we can have information in a very easy manner. To kind of quote Dr. Natasha Henner, her hope of being organized and in that proactive element within their trisomy care collaborative there at Lurie's is to actually allow parents to have more time to make decisions than less. And I think that's what was always been the hard part is like, oh, this is a
amen.
diagnosis. Now you need to make a decision today. You got to make the next decision. Okay, but determine depending on what you answer today, tomorrow you'll have just as important one, and then again, it's just going to be decision after decision and fire after fire, and they're trying to lengthen that opportunity to really consider all options, concerns, allow for the fetus to grow, to then to hopefully display more because once it's a larger kid in there, they can see better, they can have better ideas of things. So anyway, so I just really think that this transforming of care is going to be the next wave as we still push to change the narrative. And I think that's going to be
Sure.
a ripple effect. So I think you've articulated it quite well, especially from the eye protection, eye wear, and then your illustration of having this interest in helping formulate the nutrition side that was really going to benefit these kids and the corresponding effect of how we can increase nutrition and how that relates to a lot of their complexities and maybe reducing some of them. So I'm just so excited, and you guys did a great job telling this. But at the heart of the matter is soft would not be soft without you two. By the way, I know you've given a lot of credit over the years to others, but I have to tell you from my perspective and from my seat, you two are soft, and you've helped create it. You've articulated conference, I think, so well here in that people get you. And I talk about siblings, especially with living siblings, so they might be at church. I remember Carrie was much older than me, but Savannah, my other sister, who has some disabilities and some genetic, uh, anyway, so I remember being the only family with a wheelchair at church, and the only family with a wheelchair at the park, at a given day. And so I don't have to explain myself when I'm at conference. They just get it. I think that's what you said, Steve. Others just get it. And me not being a parent of a child with one of these conditions, but I can understand as a parent of children that when you talk to another parent that's walked the same path, how empowering and hope of whatever level, whatever step you're on that journey, you have a friend that has walked it too. And you can just have that for us men, you can just kind of be in the room and not say anything and just feel like you get me. I don't know. That maybe us
Mhm.
men like that more, and Peggy, you and all the gals, you do your thing, but it's just really empowering when I watch parents get together and us siblings get together because they just get it. And so I just love the way that you've done that. But I have to tell you, again and again, how wonderful and important you are to my life, to my family's life, and to Soft. So thank you, Steve and Peggy, for joining me, telling us Ryan's story. Um, one day in the eternities when I get to meet Ryan, I do believe that, let's just have a big hug and say, thanks for like connecting us all. So again, Ryan's friends, Carrie's friends, all of the friends of Soft, we appreciate you. But thank you, Steve and Peggy, for joining today.
You're welcome.
Oh, what a pleasure. Thank you for
Thank
having
you.
us on.
Now, I've got to say the things you say at the end of a podcast. I hope that you've liked this. There's comments. We'd love more comments. We'd love feedback. If you'd like to share this with others, if you are listening because you've received a diagnosis, we're here to help. Soft supports families. If you're someone that stumbled onto this and you've had a child in the past, we do meet individuals that didn't know about Soft when their children were living and they learn about us afterwards. We're here for you there as well. As you've heard from these two, Soft is part of their life. And Ryan has been an integral part of that, even though he lived just a short time. So we love to support families wherever they're at in the journey. So if you're listening to this and you fall into that category, please reach out. We'd love to meet up. We have families ready to chat with other families. If you liked it, the podcast, like it, heart it, do whatever, share it, repost it. But thank you again, those that are listening. And thank you so much, Steve and Peggy, for today, your time and your storytelling. And until next time, this is Talking Trisomy, brought to you by Soft. Thanks again.